I didn't grow up with spring, not in the way people here talk about it, with its cherry blossoms, meltwater streams, and the promise of sunshine just around the corner. Back home, we only knew two seasons, wet and dry, and yet, somehow, I always felt like spring was a story I was meant to understand, just not yet. When I was younger, I imagined spring as something soft and foreign, something delicate, like a whisper on the skin after a storm has passed, like a secret nature keeps until it's ready to be known. And when I finally met it here, on this side of the world, I realized spring isn't just a season, it's a feeling, a quiet kind of awakening. After months of gray skies and breath that fogs up the air, spring tiptoes in. It doesn't announce itself. It lingers, it unfolds, like it's remembering how to breathe after forgetting for so long. And maybe that's why I notice it, because I, too, was learning how to breathe again. Coming to Canada felt like being dropped into the middle of winter. Not just the climate, but the emotional freeze that comes with starting over. Everything was unfamiliar. The language of strangers, the silence in transit rides, the long nights that arrived before dinner. I carried my past like a coat I couldn't take off, stitched from expectations, soaked in regret, weighing heavy on my shoulders. But then spring came, not all at once, but in gentle flickers. A patch of grass fighting its way through the snow. The first time I heard birdsong again in the morning. A stranger smiling back when I said thank you. Moments that didn't seem like much until they started stitching a new version of home. There's something about spring that teaches you patience. It doesn't rush. It doesn't bloom because someone told it to. It blooms when it's ready. And I think for the longest time, I wasn't. For years, I lived like everything had to happen in order. Success, relationships, career milestones. All line up like dominoes I had to push at the right time, in the right way. But what they don't tell you is, sometimes the dominoes fall in directions you didn't plan. Sometimes they scatter, and you're left staring at a mess that doesn't resemble anything you imagined. But maybe growth doesn't look like a clean line. Maybe it looks like bare branches that survive the cold, budding slowly, without apology. The first spring I experienced here, I remember walking through the park and noticing things I never cared to look at before. Tiny buds on trees, water dripping from rooftops, the smell of earth thawing under my feet. And it made me cry in the middle of that ordinary path. Because the first time in a while, I felt something come alive in me. Something I thought I had buried for good. Hope. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that comes with declarations and resolutions. The kind that sits quietly in your chest, warming you from the inside, reminding you that this too is part of the process. There's a kind of magic in knowing you're allowed to start again. That no matter how long your winter lasted, how frozen your heart became, spring will find you. It always does. And I think about that a lot. how I once lived in a place where spring doesn't exist, and now I walk through it like I always meant to. Not just in weather, but in rhythm, in mindset, in the way I choose to forgive myself for not blooming sooner. Because the truth is, we all thaw at different times. Some of us carry winters that aren't bound by seasons. Winters made of old stories, childhood wounds, dreams that wilted from neglect. But spring doesn't ask about your past. It simply arrives, offering you light, and trusting that you'll take it when you're ready. Now, whenever I feel stuck, whenever I find myself questioning if I'm behind or broken or too late, I remind myself of that first spring, of how quietly it changed everything, of how the snow didn't melt overnight, but it melted anyway. And I think about a boy who grew up with only 2 seasons, how he once believed life was either rain or drought, chaos or dryness, and how in a foreign land he met the in-between, the gentle, the becoming. I think about how long it took me to realize that I wasn't late. I was just waiting for my own spring. And maybe you are too. So if you're in your winter, if you're still carrying the frost of old decisions, of timelines that never made sense, of grief that's overstayed its welcome, be kind to yourself. You're not broken. You're just thawing. And when the time comes, when the air softens, when the color creeps back into your world, when the light feels less foreign, step into it. Even if your branches are still bare, even if your roots still tremble. Because the most beautiful blooms often come from the longest, hardest winters. And spring has never needed perfection, just your willingness to begin again.